Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to show you guys what I've been working on for the past week. I bought a little crochet kit online and it's meant for 12 little plants. And so the kit comes with all of the yarn, the different colored yarn. It comes with the stuffing, the crochet needles, and a bunch of other little things. It does have a little booklet where it writes out what the pattern is. But they also have like a video, like an instructional video on YouTube, which I did try to follow, but because crocheting does require you to count like your rounds and how many stitches you're doing, I was having a hard time watching the video and doing it. I tried to follow along with the video, but I would have to pause it to, backtrack, recount, or stuff like that. And so, in the process of looking away, pausing the video, then going back to it, I found it even more difficult to keep track of what I was doing or what round I was in. And so what I ended up doing instead was just, following the book itself with the written pattern, and that was a little easier for me. This isn't the first book I've used, so I did start crocheting back in maybe 2012, 2013. And I had found one of my mom's old crochet books. But that book, the patterns that it had was specifically for tablecloths. So it was all in round or rectangle shapes. It also had very small patterns, so it was all usually like in a circle form, or like, oh, I think it also had like stars or flowers. But because it was meant to be for tablecloths, the yarn that it worked with was very thin, so that all of this, as you're doing the flowers, rather than it being a little bulky, it all would lay flat. And so that was the first time I used a crochet book and, followed along with the pattern. I did find that a little more difficult because, again, the yarn was pretty thin. And so I would either create knots, or if I was tugging at something a little too hard, the yarn would snap. And so what I ended up doing is I went to this store called Moscatel's, it's very similar to Michael's. It just has there's not a lot of brand stuff there, so it is a little cheaper, and I think they do a lot more wholesale stuff. Maybe Michael's does too, actually. I don't know. But I went to the store Moscatel's and I got myself like a couple of different colored yarn, and then I just looked up, how to make beanies, because at that time that was the easiest thing for me, because it does just require like circles, and increasing and then, tying it off. And so I did try to also make like a small bag, like to carry your phone in, but I didn't like how that came out. All anything that was a rectangle shape or a square shape, something straight, would never come out straight. It would always be a little lopsided. um, but eventually I stopped that, because, you can only make so many beanies and so many bags. And so when I found this kit, I really liked it. I really liked the idea that it came with just what you needed. So I didn't have to go and buy my yarn. I did think about it. It was probably cheaper if I bought the yarn separately and then maybe looked up a pattern online. But I just like the convenience of it because everything came counted. Like the yarn, they give you enough yarn to do all of the little projects. And so for this one, the first part of it is doing the pot, where the plant goes, and that's this light brown yarn that I'm working with. I did have to do, so it splits it up. It's for 12 plants, but it has it packaged 6 plants, 6 plants. So right now I'm working on the first 6. So I did the 6 pots first. And for some reason, the last one that I worked on took me the longest. I did mess up towards the end, and I didn't catch it until I was, tying it, and, when I was done with it. And then I compared it to the other ones I had done, and then I noticed that the border of it, of the little pot, was inside out. And so I did have to cut that knot and then redo that part. But at least it was towards the end. So it was an easy fix. So I was able to just do that. the soil part is a darker brown yarn, and it's just like a circle. It's pretty straightforward. I didn't record that part, but I will show you what it all looks like. So I did 6 little soil circles and then the 6 pots, and this is what it is. This is the yarn that I was working with. And now the next part of it was the green buds. And so the plant that I'm working on has a total of 8. It was supposed to be 4 large size buds and then 4 small size buds. But mine all kind of came out the same size. And so, because they were smaller than the pot itself, I did find it a little difficult to keep count of all of my rounds and all of my stitches. And so I did have to restart multiple times. And I ended up getting just frustrated. And so I started to just loosely follow the pattern. So if I was off by 1 or 2 rounds or 1 or 2 stitches, I sort of just ignored it and just kept moving forward because I wasn't getting past just that initial circle. And so I was like, I'm just gonna do it. It'll be fine. And so I was able to do them, the little 8 green buds. It does have a little pink flower at the end, and even that, because it's so small, I couldn't even get that right. And it's like, it doesn't take that long. It's it's like maybe 6 different little stitches, because it's so small. But again, it's the smaller the thing is, or the smaller, yeah, the smaller the component is, the harder it is for me, because I try to work with, I'll try to keep my posture, my hands down, especially because I'm trying to record as well. But for some of these smaller things, I find myself like moving whatever I was working on right in front of my face, like getting super close, because I was trying really hard not to lose count or to make sure that I wasn't skipping a stitch or something like that. Uh, but I did. It was harder to record at this angle because it forced my hands to stay low, and even sometimes I would move out of out of the view, and so I had to start again or like just shift my hands again. And so definitely is impressive because I have seen people do tutorials, and so they are forced to, you know, do this with their hands, always in shot. And then they do it slow enough so that you can see what it is that they're doing. And so for some parts, once I got the hang of it, I was just kind of speeding through it. And then when I had to slow down again because I was starting a new chain or a new row, that's slowing down part also would make it a little hard. And so honestly, it's super impressive, all of these tutorial videos that are out there, because it's hard enough to do the thing. But then to try to have to explain as you're doing it, that I'm just, honestly, I'm just so impressed. But anywho, so this is the bud that I was working on. Like I said, I had to do 8 in total. I didn't do the smaller ones on screen because again, those were the most difficult ones. So what I'm showing you right now is the bigger version of it, which again, it didn't come out that much different from, like, the bigger and the smaller version look pretty much the same. But after you're done with that, you add the little pink flower at the end, and then you just sort of tie them all together to get this weird little cactus looking thing. And so there's a couple more that I'm working on. I do have to take breaks. I feel like my hands start cramping up, and then I have to rest or take a rest day so that my hands aren't falling apart completely. But right now I'll show you guys what it looks like. What the little green buds look like when they're done, and then the little pink things that I had to create, and then once they're together, what that looks like. And so that's what you'll see right now in the next clip. These are the little buds. This is 3 of them. They have a little tail, that little pink bow looking thing you add at the very tip of it, and then this is the assembled part.